In the spring of 2024, I traveled to China to do a short-term teaching gig. It was an amazing trip. I got to stay in Chongqing, which is an incredible city in the Sichuan province, and I also got to visit Beijing and see the Great Wall of China. Now, every time I travel, I like to remind everybody of some safety tips while traveling abroad. So here are some of my favorite tips for anytime you're traveling in order to stay safe during your time overseas. When I travel, there are only two things that actually frighten me, two things that worry me. Getting sick and getting hit by a car. Those are really the only two things that are ever on my mind whenever I travel. And that's because I feel like these are the most potential risks. My friends who don't really travel have a lot of kind of ridiculous concerns, like maybe the police are gonna come get me for some reason, you know, like I've been to the Middle East, I've been all over Asia, and there's all this like kind of paranoid attitude about being overseas, and it's always kind of perturbed me, like, what makes you think I'm important enough that the police would come get me? Like, come on, give me a break. But what I found after traveling so much is that people want you to see the best side of their country. Every country I've been to, everyone has been so kind and so accommodating and so friendly and just so helpful that I really don't feel unsafe. In fact, most of the time, I feel more unsafe in the United States than I do in other countries, and the same is true here. So, getting sick, there's ways to prevent that. Make sure you've done your research, know if you can drink drinking water or not, because usually you can't. It's good to bring like anti-diarrheal medication, electrolytes, things like that in case you do get sick. Just practice good hand washing, bring hand sanitizer with you, things like that. Now, the traffic is the other one that frightens me. Saudi Arabia has some of the most dangerous traffic in the world, and I lived there for 3 years, and it was just insane. It was a miracle, none of us got hurt. And now that I'm in China, the traffic situation is pretty similar. It's a little bit frightening, but that just stresses the importance of being vigilant. Pay attention to your surroundings. Don't be on your phone when you're walking around. Just watch where you're going. But there are some other tips, some other things to consider to be safe when you're overseas. So always do your research before you go to another country. And as a general rule of thumb, just be respectful. Be respectful to the culture, be respectful to the government, be respectful about religion, be respectful about the different social norms that you might find in another country. It might be different from yours. That, you know, if you're respectful, you're probably not going to run into a lot of problems. I also think it's a good idea to just be aware of your surroundings. Try not to stand out too much. Like, I try to blend in whenever I go to another country. When I was in Saudi Arabia, anytime I wore the hijab, the locals thought that I was Syrian, which I thought was really funny. They thought I was a Syrian refugee. I didn't want to stand out as an American. So try not to stand out, don't call attention to yourself, be respectful, stay in touch with people back home. Whenever it comes to transportation, make sure you know how the transportation system works so that you're not relying on people who might not be real taxi drivers, for instance. And as a general rule of thumb, it's good to keep copies like of your passport and your ID and all of those legal documents. Make copies of those before you go on the trip, just in case you were to lose something. If you're in a country that might be volatile, it's probably good to know where the embassy is. This has never been an issue for me, but it's, you know, not bad information to know. And just be aware of the norms in the country. But I haven't really had any issues yet, aside from getting sick and being scared of traffic. So if you're a traveler and you've been around and you have some additional tips to offer, I would love to hear them. And if you plan on traveling, don't listen to the fear-mongering back home. Every country I've been to, all over the Middle East and Asia, has been absolutely beautiful. The people have been wonderful and so accommodating, and I'm really enjoying this trip here in China so far.